back to the Rant and Review Pro Wrestling, and this is a news and commentary break. So, lots of news going on in the world of pro wrestling over the last weekend. Unfortunately, we have to start off with some sad news that former WWE referees Dave Hebner and Tim White both passed. That's pretty sad because, especially with Tim White, well, both of them obviously, but Tim White used to be friends with Andre the Giant, and we used to hear a lot of great stories about him and Andre the Giant. Of course, Dave Hebner, twin brother of Earl Hebner, baby Earl Hebner, who's rather famous or infamous in the wrestling world. So condolences to their families and to everybody who knew them. You know, it's a sign of, again, getting older, which I don't like. But yeah, that's unfortunately they did pass this past week. Even less happy news for WWE is what's going on in WWE Corporate. So, of course, last week we had the news of Vince McMahon renouncing his position as CEO and giving it over in an interim to his daughter, Stephanie McMahon, because of the allegations coming up after the disclosure of a non-disclosure form, and now the investigation that's going on with that. We also now have John Laurinaitis, who's been replaced temporarily as another interim position as head of talent relations by Bruce Prichard, I believe. Now, Brother Love in charge of talent relations. That's interesting. But yeah, this story is not going away. I have seen it in a lot of places now, and it's now bled out into the world outside of wrestling. In fact, I watch a lot of YouTube, as some of you probably already know. And one of the channels I watch is John Campea, the John Campea Show. They cover a lot of movies and TV and stuff like that. And they were talking about it on the John Campea Show. That's where all of this has gotten to. That's how much this has gotten out there into the public that, you know, there are news outlets and commentary outlets and YouTube channels and podcasts and blogs all over the place talking about this stuff. It's not good. It's not a good look for WWE. So hopefully they will be able to, for their sake, be able to get this mess cleaned up, but it doesn't look good right now. Over in AEW, the news came out over the weekend and today that Bryan Danielson will be making an announcement on Wednesday's edition of Dynamite in regards to the Blood and Guts match and also to the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. Now, this is following, you know, the video I put out that some people liked, some people didn't. I knew that was going to happen. About whether or not the Forbidden Door was actually open, because a lot of the people we wanted to see on a show that was billed as New Japan crossing over with AEW were not going to be on that show, and Danielson was near the top of that list. Well, Danielson apparently will be making an announcement. Now, people are assuming what it's going to be. We don't know, but if it's what the fans want and what the fans are hoping for, it will be that Danielson will be on the Forbidden Door show. They've only announced, you know, a handful of comparatively to usual AEW pay-per-views. The last one had 12 matches on it. We don't have anywhere near 12 matches on the Forbidden Door pay-per-view so far. So this might be the last push Wednesday. A lot of people are speculating we're going to get a lot more announcements as far as matches that are coming up for that show. I think it's a little late to do that, but I'm not going to poo-poo them announcing like another 4 matches that actually have more New Japan guys and more guys from AEW I want to see cross over with New Japan guys. And Danielson, like I said, is one of them. So the potential challengers for Danielson, of course, people are thinking about Okada. People are thinking about a lot of people on the roster. The 2 names that stand out to me would be, number 1 would be Kenta, because of the Bizaiko knee that Danielson made popular during his Yes Movement run in WWE is Daniel Bryan. Those names, I can see why JR gets crossed up with that, as Daniel Bryan. And now Danielson taking on Kenta will be an awesome match. Of course, Kenta also with the Go to Sleep with CM Punk is another match people want to see. And I think the one, though, that's probably going to be more likely is, again, Zack Sabre Jr. ZSJ challenged Danielson recently in New Japan in one of the post-match commentaries scrums. So that's been out there for about 2 weeks now. So if this is Danielson accepting the challenge of Zack Sabre Jr., oh boy, I'm all for that. And even happier now to be going to the show coming up this weekend in Chicago. If I get to see live Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr., color me happy. At least I will get one. That will be one. I mean, like I said in that video, not expecting everything, but I did personally expect to get one of my dream matches on the show, and if that happens, I will get one of my dream matches on the show, and I will be happy now and satisfied to go to the Forbidden Door and have paid the money I paid for those tickets to go to Forbidden Door. So that's going on over there. We also have some AEW news with Hangman Page, former world champion, and he went on Twitter and kind of lambasted, however you want to pronounce that, some of the old school wrestlers. This is from WrestlingHeadlines.com. AEW superstar and former world champion Adam Page took to Twitter this morning and took aim at older wrestlers who constantly criticize today's workers on their podcast. The Hangman's full tweet reads, quote, "I just hope that when I'm old and retired, I don't lower myself to some shit-ass podcast where I trash the younger generation that's just chasing the same fortune wrestling has afforded me." While not directed at anyone in particular, this comes on the heels of WWE Hall of Famer Booker T poking fun at Adam Cole's body type, where the former five-time WCW champion said he thinks Cole needs to add some muscle. He has since clarified his comments after backlash from fans. So, good for Adam Page to, stand up. And I'm sure that's probably what this is in reference to, because Cole's heavily involved with Page in a ongoing feud right now with Jay White heading into Forbidden Door. But, Booker T's a brother. And I tend to try to not want to go against brothers and talk badly about them. But this is not the first time Booker T has said some boneheaded stuff on his podcast. I watch Booker T's podcast. I respect Booker T, especially for what he's done, especially being a black wrestler when there are so few in the business and so few that have reached the levels that he's reached. But there are times where he says things that I just am scratching my head. And his reaction to the whole Naomi Sasha Banks thing kind of surprised me, because he kind of sounded like he was siding a little bit more with WWE. And I covered that in a video a couple weeks ago. But Booker's Booker. He's entitled to his opinion, and I don't agree with it. Hangman Page probably doesn't agree with it. A lot of fans don't agree with it, but Booker T's Booker T. Let him do what he does. But also stand up for yourself, like Hangman Page did here. He's like, look, I'm a younger wrestler. We're doing what we can out here. We're trying to make a buck, make the fans happy, and have a career in this business. And we can't, and this is something I talk about a lot too with some of my wrestling friends that I talk to not on YouTube. And we talk about it, and I'm like, a lot of these older guys, and I'm an old school wrestling fan. I've been watching wrestling for decades, and I understand that, yes, it's not the same as it used to be back in the day, but it can't be the same it was back in the day. Nothing is the same it was back in the 80s and the 90s. Movies aren't the same, video games aren't the same, TV isn't the same. Everything changes, and to constantly be crapping all these guys today, the young guys today, for they spot fest monkeys and they do this and they're vanilla midgets and all this same old nonsense. I'm like, the stuff has changed, man. It's not like it was back in the day. And I accept the wrestling for what it was. As long as I don't care what style you do, and I've said this a million times when I watch WWE, I look for WWE to do the WWE style the way and if they do it well. I look for AEW to do AEW style, New Japan to do New Japan style, etc., etc. As long as you're doing what you do, what your style is, and you do it well, I will appreciate it and enjoy it. If you don't do it well, I'm not going to appreciate and enjoy it. I'm not really devoted to, wrestling has to be this way and every guy's got to be 6'2", 225 and above with steroid looking muscles. I think that day is long dead, and there are a lot of advantages to it. Visually, not so much, but I think health wise, and for most of the fans today, don't really want to see, as great as the Ultimate Warrior was, we don't want to see a bunch of Ultimate Warrior clones running around. But that's that it is what it is. Last little bit of New Japan news. Some big news came out of New Japan over the weekend. Of course, they had the Road 2 shows. One big thing is that for the Forbidden Door show, I should say, Tomohiro Ishii did defeat Clark Connors, as we all expected, and he will now be going to Forbidden Door. He'll be in that All-Atlantic Championship match, the Fatal 4-Way, with currently we got Miro and Pac in there, and Pentagon and Malachi Black will be facing each other this Wednesday on Dynamite to determine the last participant in that Fatal 4-Way, which means we're going to see Tomohiro Ishii square off with Miro, which is going to be amazing. So I can't wait for that too. So That's going to be really, really exciting. The other news from the New Japan Road shows this week was the emergence of a former wrestler returning to the promotion. We expected this for a while. A lot of us were waiting for it around the Best of the Super Juniors, but we got it here. A little bit of a spoiler alert if you haven't seen New Japan Road. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Spoilers, here we go. Taiji Ishimori did successfully retain his IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship against the ace of the division, Hiromu Takahashi, who's now fallen a couple times in his bids for the IWGP Junior title, which I think is the right decision. I think you can't have him winning everything. But after the match, Ishimori's making out challenges to people and like, hey, you know, what's going on? And who's going to challenge me now? I'm the best, blah, 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 blah. He kind of looks over at El Desperado, who was on commentary, and it's like, hey, are you going to be next? Desperado stands up, but then we hear the long forgotten familiar music, which is one of my favorite theme of this guy. Kushida's theme plays. I love Kushida's New Japan theme song, so I was happy as hell to hear it. The crowds, again, Japanese aren't supposed to say anything, but they were gasping and cheering and clapping, and they were going crazy. Kushida making his return to Korakuen Hall, making his return to New Japan Pro Wrestling. Said he's now signed a contract with New Japan. He hopes to spend the rest of his wrestling career there. He didn't even kind of quoted an Inoki quote, which about not defending a garden, defending a jungle, but building a jungle. He'd rather build a jungle than defend one. And now he's here, and he's getting in Ishimori's face, and he's going to challenge Taiji Ishimori. It's going to be interesting to see the changes in Kushida, having that 3-year experience over in the States and NXT mostly, and some on the WWE main roster, and what he's going to do. What he goes up against Taiji Ishimori, and man, the New Japan Juniors division is pretty stacked now. I mean, also on this tour we had Ace Austin. We have Ace Austin that was on the Best of the Super Juniors tour. We have Alex Zane. We have Teton, of course. You got a bunch of new guys coming here. Akira Francesco and TJP recently won the IWGP Junior Tag Team Championship. So you got a lot of moving parts now. The junior division in New Japan that's the first part of New Japan that's kind of getting back to the way things used to be. And the depth of it right now with all of the wrestlers that they can draw on to have probably about a year's worth of great junior heavyweight championship matches. You know, Desperado, TJP. Also, don't forget, we remember Leo Rush has now declared himself in the junior division for New Japan Pro Wrestling. So Leo Rush is in there. We got, like I said, Akira Francesco. We got Hiromu, Desperado. You got a lot of people in the New Japan junior division right now that looks really good. So it's the first part of New Japan that kind of feels like it's now full again, like it's back where it should be. So I'm very excited to see what's going to happen in the next 6 to 8 months with New Japan's junior division. There's a lot coming down the line, and we won't be seeing much of it until after the G1, which is coming up right after the Forbidden Door. So some exciting stuff going on in the world of wrestling, but I want to know what you guys think about these news stories. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe button, and a notification bell, and be sure to share this video wherever you talk about wrestling in social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, wherever you talk about it. I'll see you guys again soon for more news, rumors, and commentary here on the Rant and Review Pro Wrestling. Have a good day.